All right, I'm here with Matisse of Package.js. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Not too bad. Um, so to just jump right into it, do you want to just give us a quick background on who you are, and how you got into SaaS?
Yeah, so I was always a technical co-founder or a software developer and a problem solver. And then I became more of a app architect and strategist, small business strategist, MVP strategist. So I got into programming originally about 15 years ago because I was a baseball player and then I got hurt. And so I thought, should I be a coach? And so then I started doing statistics, and doing statistics by hand was um, not as easy as doing it with a computer. So I decided to automate that, and in doing so, I learned how to program. And then um, MLB Pitch Effects is a database that was provided. I don't know if they still do anymore, but it was every single pitch that's thrown. Uh, they uh, they have all the data on it. So they tell you if it's a curveball, where it was, if how fast it was, and everything like that. So from that um, data set, I because I really cared about the problem, it helped me learn programming. I wanted to be able to predict the next pitch, and so that's what I was focused on in the beginning, is making an app where I could predict the next pitch based on all that data. So that's how
That's
I kind
cool.
of got jumped in. Yeah.
I feel like we always start with like a side project that's very related to our other hobbies, and then figure out it's hard to make money that way. But were the predictions good?
I think for the most part they were pretty good. I used to be able to sit there and watch a game and be like, it's going to be a curveball outside, and sometimes it was pretty accurate. So, but yeah, a
That's
lot of
cool.
people ask when they start programming, they're like, what should I learn? What language? And it's like, pick a problem. Like, just pick a problem that you want to solve, and then the rest is kind of will just happen. So.
And then do you want to just give a quick intro of what your company does?
Yeah, so Package.js is a low-code framework for building full-stack apps in JavaScript and Node.js. And then it's used to make MVPs very quickly for non-technical co-founders. Um, and so basically just solving problems again, helping people solve their problems.
And how did you come up with this idea?
Well, so I'd been making apps for people for about 10 years, and I noticed that a lot of apps have a very similar structure, and building and connecting an API to a database, and handling file uploads and caching, and all these things. I started to see a lot of patterns, and I extricated away the concept of making a backend, and kind of just figured out how to make that into a full stack tool that uh, it's configurable with classes first. Then on top of that is like I don't want to get like too super technical, but so it's like code, and then above that is like a configuration file, ability to construct your system, and then above that is the kind of like the app builder that people would be familiar with, and that's kind of like point and click and make a backend. So yeah, that's kind of how it got
And
started. Just wanting
when
to stretch that.
yeah, sure. But I imagine that during that period you had tons of ideas, probably just a lot of random ideas. How did you end up picking this one?
Yeah, so I have started a lot of startups. And when I started this, I actually had like a really weird kind of fork in the road moment because it was kind of just pre-pandemic. I proved the concept between like November, December of 2019. And I said, all right, I can build this out. And so I looked at it and I said, if I start working on a company like this, I can imagine it's a language. It takes time for other people to learn. So it's gonna be slow to adopt, and if you look at how languages grow, it's kind of, I was like, this is at least a 5 or 10 year thing. And I also at the time was thinking like maybe I should really stick with AI, or doing some machine learning. And just at the time I thought doing ML on your own is kind of, it's, you can learn a lot, but I think that you need the infrastructure of academia around you, and then to move into a private company that has a lot of funding. So I just don't think it's one of those things that you can do like on your own. Now you can utilize tools that people have made using AI. Like once they publish the model, you could build a startup on that. But creating those models is not really a solopreneur type endeavor.
Yeah, they weren't as accessible in 2019, I'm sure. Um,
Right.
so I'm just curious, what other ideas were you thinking about, or what other ideas did you execute on before this one?
So I was interested in the first startup I made was a like an archiving tool, and so you could save your bookmarks, but it would keep all of the JavaScript and CSS intact. So when you came back to it later, the page would still have the same functionality, minus web requests, because if those didn't work anymore,
Oh, that's
you
cool.
can't fake the API; it doesn't exist. But yeah, so it preserved the integrity. It was called permamarks, permanent bookmarks. And then I also got interested in making sending encrypted images right around the time with Snapchat becoming popular, and then people wanted more privacy, but people really didn't want to pay for it. So that was a hard lesson to learn, is that people say they want something, but they may not actually want to pay for it. So you have to make sure people are willing to pay before you spend a lot of time building something.
Yeah. So did you have people willing to pay before you built Package.js?
Yeah, so the existing, I was a consultant, and so the existing demand was there. People would come to me with basically the same problems, which is you know one of the most popular kind of stories is, oh, I took on a developer, and you know it's been 6 months and the app's not done, and I don't know where we're at, and he just quit. I gave him equity, or equity, or you spent 50K, or something along those lines. And so I heard this a lot from people, and so when I was like, hey, I can build something for you probably in like a week or two, and it'll scale to production. Is that something that's of interest? Like, kind of, I'll prove to you it can be done. It's here, and then we can move forward. And that scratched that itch. So,
Did you accept money up front?
did I accept money up front? Actually, I have a kind of non-traditional business model. So it depends on the problem and how complicated I think it is, and also um, I have a few criteria for vetting people. So I kind of want to be careful of sharing too much about how I do that. But basically, if I feel somebody is right, I do build a little bit of it up front to show them that it can be done. So it's kind of no risk. But that's usually enough. It's bird in the hand. So once somebody sees that they have something, this is ready, and it's theirs, that they've seen their idea come to life. Uh, they want it. Um, you know, they're
Well, what
uh,
about like before you built out the entire platform? Like, did you have anybody for sure interested?
oh no. So yeah, I was building this for myself, right? Because I wanted to just be able
Okay.
to out of ideas. So no, actually, this was unique in that sense. I didn't have to prove that other people wanted it, because I just wanted it.
Okay. So you were just planning to use the product to increase your productivity as a consultant.
Yes, which is
Okay.
a again, I did this because generally my rule is like salespeople will buy technical solutions, technical people will buy sales solutions. This is a technical solution for technical people, so unless if it's not free, it's generally not gonna work too well. Um, so this obviously is paid, and but I am providing a solution for non-technical co-founders. So
So my next question is, how did you get your first customer? It sounds like maybe you built out a solution that they could like see and play around with. Is that right?
yeah, so first customer, it was a friend of a friend, and I don't talk too much about the ideas, because everybody wants to protect their own ideas. So I have a rule not to share too much about who's using the software. unless they say that they're using the software, then that's okay. Um, but yeah, so it was a friend of a friend, and they were working on some software for an industry that they'd been in for a long time, 30 years. And so they just really wanted to automate something, and I was able to help them out, and that worked out. So,
So okay, but how did you convince them to buy it, I guess?
well, they were looking for a non-technical co-founder. So when they were interviewing me, they came prepared to talk equity, and I basically said, you know, I don't want equity from you. And they were kind of like, well, how much are you an hour? And I said, you know, that's kind of not how this works. And I pitched them on the time to get the uh, the product out so that they could um, start servicing their existing customers. And they were shocked at how quickly I was able to perform. So it's because it's such a short time frame. It's not the typical. There's not as much of an investment there that needs to be made on either person's part. I'm only spending about a week or two, and on their end, they're not waiting for a house to be built. You know, so it's not like a 18-month kind of thing. Like it's in a sweet spot. So
Okay. Um, I see. So you kind of use the product as a consultant, and that is the
yeah,
product?
no, the product is itself used by other developers. There are a lot of developers using the product to build for clients as well.
Okay. So how
So
did you sell it to those other developers?
uh, it
I
really
just
was.
imagine that was really hard.
Um, It wasn't actually I mean, it's word of mouth. So just when somebody starts using it, it does take a little bit of time to really understand. It depends on where you are in your developer journey too, because if you're a developer, really what this is geared towards is like if you're just a front end developer, this will make you full stack like ready immediately, but within 3 months you kind of see the structure of how an app is built. And so people who start using this start to notice like, oh wow, like I know how to do some DevOps now. And it makes that journey a lot less intimidating for people that are kind of like, where do I start? Like, how do I learn programming? Like, what's an API? Like, this kind of just is like, all right, the API is done. How did this work? So it's easier to work backwards through that process. So people have seen other people do that, and from there, just kind of word of mouth, it's grown.
Okay. So it's like devs or maybe people that are a little less technical than devs that it's like optimal for.
It's I would say devs that have gotten a computer science degree. So
Okay.
if you just left college, that's kind of the best. I mean, it helps you upskill quickly. If you're already a developer, it would just expedite your process. So if you're switching from doing something else like iOS development and you want to build full stack apps, this would be a good switch. And I'm saying if you're a very experienced developer and you want to switch, that would be um, somebody that would find a lot of value there. But if you've been a
Okay.
developer for a long time doing Node.js apps, you probably have your own boilerplate. So generally, I don't
Okay.
pursue because everybody likes their own system. So at that point, somebody's been ingrained in what they're doing. So, but who knows? I haven't had one of those yet, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Get
No,
somebody's
I
opinion.
could see I feel like there's a lot of like different templates or boilerplate
Mhm.
um build your own app kits coming out, and I think that's awesome and I should try one soon to speed up that process. So I definitely see the value. Um
Oh, this is actually different though. This isn't just a boilerplate template.
but yours is more of like it like gives you a boilerplate to start with and then it's like more of a no code to customize it.
It's an app development language. So it just is it's a new process on top of writing code that helps you build many different configurations of systems. So you may have 20 databases that you're all integrating and they all kind of talk to each other as a single source of truth. They come through an API. So it's not like a boilerplate, which is just kind of like monolithic like database API and one that just helps you start up a SaaS kind of thing, if that makes any sense. Boilerplates are kind of things you can write in a weekend, whereas like a true low code framework, like some of my competitors, I don't want to name by name, but things like that would be much longer than a weekend project.
Okay. So when you look back and you had 20 customers, what worked the best for you in terms of selling and marketing to get those 20 customers? Like which channels?
I think one of the tricks that I used was to be a customer and understand what I felt. And so I kind of put myself in the position of like, um, what are people going through when they are shopping for a developer? And that helped me to understand how to represent myself when I'm talking to them, because it is a little bit weird to like, for instance, if you wanted to sell a book, um, when you go to the bookstore, like why do you buy a book? Like what makes you attracted to a specific book on the shelf? Um, it kind of takes a little bit of reframing, because you know you when it's your thing and you want to sell that thing, you're kind of trying to find strategies of how other people have sold the thing. But it's a lot easier when you come from the other angle and go, why do I buy the thing? And so for those first 20 customers, it was just basically figuring out like, why do people buy the thing? Um, yeah. Um, I
And
think
then,
that sums it up.
so from there though, so that's like a good like framework on how to think about the sales. But then if we're talking like actionable steps people can take away, like what channels did you start finding people on? Like was it word of
Oh,
mouth,
right.
ads, or
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on LinkedIn, and I found that it was very helpful to identify people that would be interested in the product and send them a connection request. And if they connected with me, then invite them to like the business page. And if they like the business page, a cold message wasn't as cold. So that was kind of the trick there. So you mean outside of my original network of people, reaching out
yeah.
to people outside of my network? Okay, I understand. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So no worries. So you just kind of sent, like you just cold message people on LinkedIn and ask them to like your company's page.
Yeah, well, I connected with them. So people are familiar with getting connection requests. And so you kind of want to connect with people over something. So sending a message with the connection request is helpful, especially if there's something particular. I wouldn't send the same blanket message over and over again. I think I mean, statistics wise, that might be just fine. But like connection requests, I've noticed that with a little bit of a message, if I send out, let's say 1,000, I'll get 300 of those to respond, so about 30%. And then if I were to just like message them and say like, "Hey, try my product," the response rate was like really low. But if you ask them to follow the page first, um, and then you engage with them in a message as a cold message, the response rate there is like 50%. So you're getting like 15% overall of the people that you tried to reach um, initially, instead of just like 3% or 2% by just trying to like cold, like, please use my thing. I get those all the time on LinkedIn. So I feel like I should maybe tell them like, hey, try first doing this other thing. But I don't know. You know, if it works for them, it works for them. So.
Here we go. Now we're talking. This is what I'm trying to dig into because I think this is the stuff that'll help people the most when they're trying to like get to 1K MRR. Because I think most people don't know this stuff. And to you, it's probably like you've done all this research and you figured it out. But um, like I want to dig in even more, and I'm curious, like, what did that exact message look like when you're like asking people to like your page? Because if I got that, I don't know if I would respond if someone just
Oh,
asked me to like it.
the page invitation, there's no messages there. So on LinkedIn, you just have the it allows you to send 250 invites to your business page per month, I think, and then they refresh the counter. So
Okay.
Yeah, you're sending an initial connection request with a person. You just want to kind of highlight why they should connect with you based on what they need, not what you need. Again, put yourself in the customer's shoes. It's
Okay.
like you're coming from this, like, hey, I can do this. I think part of it is, and I know personally where this came from was maybe a bit of insecurity, right? Like, hey, I can do this thing, and if you just see that I can do this, right, like you'll like it, and you want to prove yourself, and ultimately, um, when you're the customer, you realize when people are trying to do that, it's not you're not as receptive to it. It's more about, well, what do I need? Not, yeah, you're cool, I get it, but what about me? And it's not so much just um, yeah, I don't know if I should talk about this, but you've done a fantastic job with that. So um,
Well,
your
no, this is my current interest because as you know, as I tried to sell you on my cold email service, um, I'm running cold email, so I'm just trying to like study copy and how that works and who to target, and all that stuff. And I've been playing around with like some different LinkedIn automation tools. Um, like did you use automation tools where you connect with people, then 2 days later invite them to like your page? Um,
Yeah, actually, I wrote my own, so that's something that is available as like a template, and it helps people to automate to a certain extent social media.
okay. Did you play around with any other marketing channels?
Yeah, I did Twitter, I did Instagram. I guess one of the things about social media is you need to understand the purpose uh, of the network. Like, um, for instance, with LinkedIn, like I was saying, the business page is the main focus. So you can't. I think now you can, but you weren't able to message people who had liked your business page from your business. So now they're enabling that, but that was the reason it was kind of difficult. You would have to invite them to the business page, but that's the whole purpose of LinkedIn, right? Is your business page. With Instagram, I would say it's just kind of a wall of credibility. Um, you kind of just get a quick glance. It's like, is this a person? Is this person, if they're an artist or photographer, is this a person that's doing well? And do people like their stuff? So it's kind of figuring out like what's the point of the social network and then kind of gearing up towards that and optimizing for it. With Twitter, I would say it's your pinned tweet. Like, what do you want to be known for? Get that pinned tweet and then follow a bunch of people. When they come in first, they'll check you out even if they don't follow you back. But a lot of people do reciprocate. But if they look, they'll see your first tweet, they'll like it, and then that tweet will really harvest a lot of likes. So yeah, that's a neat little trick.
What are your thoughts on using Twitter as like a top of funnel or just like a place to get sales? Like, have you had success with that?
Uh, I've focused more on LinkedIn, so I think
Yeah,
Twitter's great. I definitely do. Or sure, we call it X now. It's X, right?
sure.
Haven't gotten used to that yet. Yeah, so it's yeah, I think X is interesting. And I think it's a really great way to communicate with people. Um, but yeah, I think the messaging on there is a bit difficult.
Yeah, that's fair. And you have like 4 or 4,500 followers or something like that. So you would
It's
know.
five, and it goes above and below five constantly.
Okay. Okay. But so if you're saying LinkedIn, you probably know. Um,
Thanks.
but what
We're all
are,
just figuring things out.
yeah. What have been your biggest obstacles like so far on your journey?
Um, I guess it was figuring out the business model. One of the things that I think a lot of people go into um, starting a business is to think of like, oh, I want to do this, and then people will pay me for it. And I think that it sounds nice, but ideally, I mean, not ideally, but generally, in if if it can be that easy, other people are already doing it, and there are probably very low margins. Um, so one of the tricks is to compete with existing competitors. You want to find a non-obvious business model. So something along the lines of like if you wanted to sell a stationary bike right now, like Peloton did or something like that. Um, I know you've probably seen Black Mirror, but it wouldn't be to try to sell people this stationary bike because it people may already prefer a certain brand and they go out, they buy that brand. It would be maybe starting a store where the stationary bikes are there and people can use them, and you're using the electricity to run a factory in the back or something along those lines. Something non-obvious where people are like, why is this stationary bike place free? Like, it's a free gym? Like, yeah, it's a free gym. And you kind of have to think outside of the box and compete on something a little bit more abstract than just like, oh, I made a thing, I sell it. And so that was the hardest part for me, was figuring out some a very non-obvious business.
Sure. What different business models did you try like in the beginning?
Well, I wanted to just sell the builder straight up, and that didn't work very well. And so after some time, you can do some particularly obvious business models, but initially getting started, it is good to figure out some way to benefit your customers in a way that they might not think right away, or it might not cost them anything.
And are there any current like obstacles you're dealing with now? I'm sure you're dealing with some every day, but what are the biggest ones you've had to deal with lately?
I guess communication. Communication. I
What do
am
you mean by that?
I have a lot of messages to respond to sometimes, and I'm trying to keep everybody above water. So yeah.
Fair enough. And then last question for people that just started, maybe they just got their first $10 of MRR and they're trying to get to 1K. What advice do you have? Blanket advice for people on that journey?
Um, Ride somebody else's marketing budget. So, for instance, if like WordPress, or when they started their plugin store, when Apple started the App Store, it's in their best interest to spend $50 million doing marketing for their App Store. And if you're one of the first apps on the App Store, or now it's with ChatGPT, ride their marketing budget. So just make a product that's going to be promoted, that's going to be popular, that'll be in search, that other people are interested in. Um, and if it's trendy and it's topical, then may also just get funding even without existing customers. Um, that would probably be, um, I guess, my best advice is to just ride somebody else's marketing budget.
I like that. Well, Matisse, thank you so much for being episode 3 of the podcast. And it was super nice to meet you.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.